my presentation will be mostly about natural gas import security in the context of energy and climate security, and looking into Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece, and then how we can measure how this security can change depending on the pathways we decide in terms of our energy mix, in terms of energy policies, and different measures. And the Center for the Study of Democracy piloted the Energy and Climate Security Risk Index, which is a policy instrument that tries to measure energy and climate security based on 4 pillars. So we look at geopolitical risk, we look at affordability of energy, the reliability of the system, and sustainability indicators. And specifically for my presentation today, I will be talking about part of the geopolitical risk factors that we look at. And this is the import security risk for natural gas. And the way we define security of natural gas imports is based on import dependency. So for example, a country that is 100% dependent on imports to meet its demand already has a huge risk embedded in that. We also look at the share of natural gas in the economy and in the energy mix as a whole, to also account for the fact that even a 100% dependent country might not face such a huge risk if natural gas plays a minor role, such as, for example, in Bulgaria to some extent. And then we look at disruption risk, which depends on one hand on diversity of supply, and on the other hand on the reliability of the sources of imports. And we look at freedom scores, so we use Freedom House data to measure the weighted average freedom score of the import mix. And the results are quite interesting. So these are the index results for Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece compared to the EU benchmark. And actually, the data tells us a very interesting story. So first of all, you can see that from 2014 up until 2021, which is when we have the latest data points from Eurostat to use, we had a significant increase of the import risk on the EU level, but also in countries such as Romania and Greece. And this is actually very telling about what we were missing in terms of policy direction over the last several years. So we were adopting natural gas as a transition fuel European-wide as the standard approach. And this led to the increase of use of natural gas across countries. And actually, Italy and Germany played a huge role driving up the EU-level risk between 2014 and 2021. And at the same time, this increase of natural gas demand came together with higher import dependency, and also higher dependency on Russia in particular. So this led to a huge increase of the risk. And it's very important to mention that 2014 is a very important year because this is the year of the annexation of Crimea. And this is basically a chart that tells us that we missed a lot of warning signs between that and 2021. And actually these risks that were building up until 2021 actually materialized with the invasion of Ukraine. And we are now facing the consequences in terms of prices and supply disruptions. Now, we tried to look at the future and how it might look like in terms of security risks for this particular indicator for the 3 countries. And we used external scenarios to assess the level of risk and how each of these scenarios would perform in terms of risk. So we look at the EU reference scenario, which is a baseline scenario provided by the European Commission. And it basically takes into account current policies and measures of member states. The Fit for 55 mixed scenario is also based on the EU reference scenario. It also comes from the European Commission, and it looks at a European Green Deal aligned scenario that combines carbon price signal and intensification of national policies for decarbonization in the buildings and the transport sector. And the final scenario that we look at is the accelerated gas phase-out scenario. This is actually a very long-standing work we have been doing together with several partners across Europe, including Wuppertal Institute, for example, and Artelis, and we try to model a scenario where we have at the same time a very ambitious coal phase-out strategy, but gas is not used as a transition fuel, and it's actually minimized. Its use is minimized, of course, taking into account security of supply concerns. But overall, we have a mix of policies that incentivize a switch away from natural gas. And here is the results, the 2021 versus 2020 versus 2030 difference in terms of the level of risk in the three scenarios. So the red bars would give you the exit or the accelerated gas phase-out scenarios. And you can see that the greatest reduction of risk comes from these policies and measures that reduce as much as possible, but not fully, natural gas demand by 2030. In the case of Bulgaria and Greece, we have a 50% reduction of risk compared to 2021. And in Romania, we have a 100% reduction of the risk, which actually reflects the fact that in this scenario, Romania becomes a net exporter of natural gas, which completely raises the import security risk. And what is also quite interesting to say is that if you look at Greece, the reference scenario actually performs better than the Fit for 55 scenario. And this is a reflection of the fact that in the Fit for 55 scenario, the assumptions used in this scenario by the European Commission, gas is used as a transition fuel, so natural gas demand actually increases and import security risks also increase. What is also important to mention is that, of course, this doesn't, these scenario, especially the exit scenario, does not assume a full phase out of natural gas by 2030, but it sees a 6 BCM reduction compared to the reference scenario. So this is quite substantial. Now, these are just a couple of charts that show the buildings and the industry sector pathways for the accelerated gas phase-out scenario, so the kinds of policies and measures that are foreseen with this accelerated gas phase-out trajectory. And efficiency gains are the most important ones that drive the reduction of natural gas use, but we also have electrification on the one hand. Also in the industry sector, we have industrial heat pumps deployment, especially for low heat applications. And but also, most of all, we have of course efficiency gains, and also for the high temperature processes, we see higher use of biomass use. And then in the building sector, the main aspect is of course again efficiency, and we can say that both Bulgaria and Romania have a huge potential in terms of energy efficiency gains in the building sector. So we do see that being maximized in this scenario. Now, additionally to the gas demand trajectory, we did an analysis of what the import mix might look like for the three countries with respect to the gas import requirements in each scenario. And we see that in Romania, the accelerated gas phase-out scenario, which is basically the one that you see over here, this is the scenario where Romania actually becomes a net exporter of natural gas. And of course, this is assuming a very conservative outlook in terms of natural gas production in Romania. So if we have more ambitious gas production trajectory, we might even see higher exports out of Romania, contributing to the security of both Bulgaria and Greece in terms of imports. For Bulgaria, the picture is slightly different. So here we have, of course, a huge reduction of the risk by 2030 in the accelerated gas phase-out scenario. But still, we do have some reliance on Russia. And here, it's very important to say that when we show Russia as a source of natural gas, of course, right now we can claim that Russia is not officially part of our import mix for natural gas. But it is true that Turk Stream continues to run at full capacity, and indirectly, Russian natural gas continues to play an important role for security of, basically for ensuring natural gas import requirements in Southeast Europe. And for Bulgaria, a lot of the diversification actually comes from Azerbaijan. And here the role of IGB is quite crucial. But of course, without any major increase of capacity, we still see some reliance on natural gas by 2030 in terms of Russia. And for Greece, we already have a very mixed very diversified import mix. And in the accelerated gas phase-out scenario, the demand reduction is sufficient to fully reduce the reliance on Russian gas. And in the Fit for 55 scenario, we actually have higher imports from Russia compared to the reference scenario, and we have higher import requirements overall. Now, just to conclude, our analysis shows that accelerating the phase-out of natural gas is critical for reducing import risks and for dealing with the challenges we are now facing in terms of prices and security of supply concerns. Of course, full phase-out by 2030 is not feasible, but we still see huge benefits in terms of import risk reduction if such policies are applied. We also need targeted policies that reflect these needs. So, for example, incentivizing energy efficiency, accelerating the deployment of alternative technologies, and also the deployment of renewables. And of course, one of the elements that hasn't been touched upon quite significantly throughout this presentation, but should not be forgotten, is about empowering energy poor consumers, because they're the ones that suffer the most from this transition, and we need them to be not just on board, but they need to be part of this transition and protected by price risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostantsa. Please join us here. I will take another approach than Julian earlier, and I will have all presentation and then the discussion. But for the moment, just one clarification from your part. What is the meaning of the term gas exit? Is it related with gas phasing out, gas being phased out, or gas imports being phased out?
Gexit is actually the term of the nickname of the project we had in terms of creating this scenario, and it basically stands for exiting natural gas. Of course, that's only feasible by 2050. By 2030, that's still too far away.
Okay, because I saw in Romania, for example, it was zero risk if the gas from Neptune Deep project will come in place, but it doesn't mean no gas.
No, not at all. Actually, the demand for natural gas in all three countries remains quite substantial by 2030. It's just that the import reliance on Russia decreases substantially by 2030, and then by 2050 we are already looking at, other questions related to sustainability rather than reducing import risk.